Well, hello on the 27th of June. And this is like a 2-week, I guess, review of some of what I'm doing back here in the back fig orchard and the garden. A bit of an update. Just 2 weeks. If you go back and look at the last video where I featured the garden, and all of these plants were just little babies, and you can see I've already picked the basil, and Debbie and I made pesto, a big deal, a pretty large amount of it, by taking off all the tops, all the top pieces. Here's one I missed, but there was a lot of them, and I'll let them, and now they'll grow. The more you cut back basil, the more it grows. It's sort of like I guess you would say it's pruning it, and it makes it grow and become more bushy and produce far more leaves, which we love in our Italian kitchen. And we love fresh pesto. Well, there's the parsley, which was very little, and now it's much larger. And we've got peppers. We've been eating peppers, and we've been picking quite a few things. One tomato plant is not doing as well as the other tomato plants, as you can see. And what is the reason for that? Well, I can tell you right now. I don't know. It could be a cutworm got to it. Maybe it was diseased when I bought it. Maybe it was something that I did. I don't know. But it's just not performing as well as these other tomatoes. And I've got big boy and better boy in here. There's 4. There's 2 better boys and 2 big boys. I don't know what is what. So it's not because of the variety or anything like that. And then our son has another tomato plant over there. And then we have some cherry tomatoes that we have growing over here. They're even beginning to get ripe. You can see down there. And we have cucumbers. I don't remember exactly what was in the last feature of this garden, but I believe the cucumbers were in. Yeah, they were because I had the large flower pots upside down on them to temporarily shield them from the midday sun until they got acclimated from the transplant process. But look at them, and there's flowers. See the flowers in there? There's flowers in there, which means fruit everywhere. Already the zucchini is producing. I haven't eaten one yet, but look at this one. That one's almost ready to pick. Can you see it? And there's others, and there's flowers everywhere, and there's other zucchini in there. Can you see them? All over the place. They're here and they're there, and they're just about everywhere. Okay, back there too. So I'm excited, and again, we don't have a very big garden this year. I decided not to have a large garden last year and this year, but we'll have all the tomatoes that we need. And I love fresh tomatoes for so many obvious reasons. Especially, believe it or not, I just love coming out and getting a big tomato, freshly grown in my own garden organically, and then take it in the house and cut it into about a 1-inch slice, thick slice, and then just on toasted bread, good whole wheat bread, or a healthy bread, a whole grain or multi-grain bread, and a little salt and pepper. What a delight it is. It doesn't have to be fancy, okay? It can just be simplicity. And simplicity can often be delightful. Trust me, and you probably know that. Just a tomato sandwich now and then. I just love, there's nothing that rivals it. And you can't get those early tomatoes that are grown in the greenhouse. They just don't taste the same because they don't have the advantage of the ultraviolet rays penetrating the fruit, stirring up the enzymes which make that intensify the flavor and make for a better fruit. And that's the case in everything that you grow in a greenhouse. You want to grow, if you have a greenhouse, I like to make sure that everything in the greenhouse, like my fig trees, I like to move them out into the sun, into the golden sun, to receive that ultraviolet light and other light rays and forms or bands that will help to intensify the flavor and help to make the fruit more delicious and larger and healthier, just better all the way around. It's a higher quality fruit. You're going to get a higher quality fruit when you bring in all of the rays, all of the bands of the sun. That's the way nature intended. Here, I've got some Celeste trees that are just doing magnificently, and they're laden with fruit. I've talked about this already in this back orchard, which I'm going to feature in a second. This is just a 2-week update. And I wanted to just go over this. You see can you see? I'm going to point. There's a trunk back there. Am I pointing right? Yeah, there you go. I think I'm right there. Anyway, there's a trunk back there, the one furthest back, and the tree is leaning over a little bit. I've got it tied. You can see I've got it tied in there. Let me show you. See, I've got it tied, but it's not enough. And this one's leaning out. It's a nice branch or a nice trunk with lots of producing terminal buds. It's doing very, very well. The whole tree is. So what I'm going to do, these are the things that I do all the time. I don't really demonstrate it enough, but I have demonstrated it. I'm going to put a rebarb right here. I'm going to drive it in the ground right there, about 2 feet away from this whole trunk, from all those trunks. And then I'm going to pull that one in tight and bring it in with the others so that it will, over the summer, change its direction. It will actually meld, so to speak, okay, through an osmosis kind of process of having pressure applied to it through the entire summer and growing simultaneously. It will change its angle of growth and come into the fold. And that's exactly what I want to accomplish with that branch. And so I'm going to do that. Now, I haven't done it yet. I might show it again, but I'm going to do it for sure. Here, get an example. I have a rebarb here, and I've got my figs tied to it, and I've got that replicated everywhere all the time in any property that I have figs growing. And I believe it's a very important part. Here you can see it's a very important part of maintaining control over your figs. Here you can see I have this tied because it was leaning out, and now they're all back together, and I've got a rebarb in there. Can you see it? And it's tied in certain different ways, and I'm bringing, sometimes the branches very often are tied to one another for support, and you just want to try to conform all of the trunk growth into a vertical direction wherever it is possible to do so. Here you can see too, I have a rope around or a string around this with the rebarb over there, pulling all these branches in so that they do take form. They eventually will take form, and they will just continue to grow upward. And that's what you want. That's what I want, for what it's worth. That's how I grow my figs. I'm doing the same with every single thing in this garden. Okay, now this one doesn't really need, this one didn't really need too much, but I can see where there's a branch hanging down here, even though it's very, very well fruited. Can you see it? It's hanging down here. It's starting to lean over. Can you see it from back this in the distance a little bit? And I don't like that. It's going to pull the others out. Now I'm going to put a string around those, all of those, and I'm going to tie them together so that they can support one another in a vertical growth pattern. And I'm going to cut that low-hanging branch off. Does it hurt to cut that low-hanging branch off? Well, it doesn't hurt as far as pruning figs in the summertime. You can do all you want. I have found, for what it's worth, neck on the chopping block. Been doing it all my life, though. I'm certain of it. It doesn't matter. You want to prune? Prune. And I'm going to cut that branch off. I can tell you how it does hurt. I don't want to lose the fruit. Look at it. And you can see that there's different maturation phases of fruit developing on that branch. That will come into fruition over time. These will, of course, be the earliest further down, and the ones that are most developed from a maturation standpoint. And then these later figs that have already emerged, they'll all get ripe, because this particular variety, which this happens to be another Celeste, which I love, this particular strain of Celeste, all of these figs will get ripe. every single one of them. That's one wonderful thing about Celeste. It doesn't have a Breba crop that stays on, and they almost all fall off. Every once in a while I get an occasional one. I've covered that before. But the main crop is the really, you might say, the only practical crop that you can rely on. And it's very prolific, and it's early. It's early, like beginning in August, early August, and it's over, by the time the cold weather settles in. So you don't have to worry about these little figs getting ripe. It doesn't require too much it doesn't require too much in development. The time in development is maybe, 70 days at the most, 65, 70 days at the most. It's fast, okay? And so we move on. Let's take a look here at the rest of this, I call it the behind the shed or backyard orchard. I have orchards. I have a front and side orchard I featured recently. But you can see it's just unbelievable just how fruitful and healthy and vibrant, alive and healthy. I mean, look at that. They're just all doing so magnificently well. All of the figs. And there are just, and I'm not exaggerating, I'm sorry. I see the exaggerations in places. My goodness. Look with your own eyes. Don't be beguiled or fooled. Look at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and yes, that's right, thousands of figs in this yard. If you count the front orchard and the back orchard, if you look around and look at all of the figs on all of the trees in all of the places in this yard, all over the place, if you just look at the abundance, the utter abundance of fruit just everywhere, 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 everywhere. Look. Can you see it all over the place? Okay, we can walk around. We can look at every little tree. We can look inwardly at all of the trees in the interior of my little fig menagerie, my little fig garden here. And I mentioned before that there were other fig varieties in here that I removed because they weren't quite acclimated or properly suitable or acclimated or adaptable to my particular zone and this climate here in southern New Jersey, which is of course 7A, as I said before. I get asked that a lot, so I try to put it in most of my videos. But look at the abundance of fruit all over the place. Okay, now this requires some tying. You see, look at all that fruit. I'm going to take a string and I'm going to pull this up. Okay, can you see that? And I'm going to tie this in here to that larger branch in there of that other fig variety. Okay, and so that will just gently point and suggest that this grow more vertically and fill out. Okay, I've already taken the liberty of popping the tip off this one. Okay, and the reason why I did that is because I can see that these figs here that would develop in these nodes, they probably won't have enough time to ripen, whereas all of the others will. So I would rather, at this stage, on the 27th of June, at this stage, I would rather divert that energy, okay, detour it, if you will, okay, to another location, to the fruit that's developing in the lower area of the branches. Okay, so I went ahead and I popped them off. All right. Every little thing helps. Every little bit of control that you try to exert over your orchard pays, I think, a valuable dividend. And that needs to be tied, and I'll tie it. No big deal. Figs are work sometimes, okay? They are. But for the most part, this orchard is very well managed, as you can see. It's very well under control. I have it tied in many locations. You can see that. It's tied, it's tied, it's tied. It's tied everywhere, okay? And it should be, okay? You see, here's another heavy string that I have tied in this Feliciano Bianco, and I've got that growing in a good vertical position. All right. All of the branches are striving for sunlight. I hear things like, oh, the figs don't need, more than 4 hours of sun. Listen, will they survive with 4 hours of sunlight? Yes. But they are not going to thrive. They're not going to thrive. Trust me. I've been doing this for over 50 years, okay? They like full sun. And you could scale it down. The less sun they get on a full sun chart, the less you expose them to, the less fruit you're going to get. You're going to get flimsier branches, less fruitful. The quality of the fruit is not going to be equal to the fruit that gets full sun. Okay, the taste is not going to be equal. I can just go down the list. It's just not as good. So don't listen to that. Okay, this is misinformation. Don't listen to it. Okay, don't waste your time. Now, if you're going to get 6 or 7 hours of sun, you can grow figs successfully, and their taste pretty good. And if you pinch properly and try to contain them so that they don't get real straggly and long, like I see in a lot of videos. Sorry, I have to admit it. It's awful. Okay, if you get 6 or 7 solid hours of sunlight and you do the right things, okay, you can manage a pretty decent crop. But try to plant your fig trees high and dry and in a full sun area if you can. The more sun, the better, period. There is no, it's incontrovertible. It's not even up for debate. It's not even a neck on the chopping block sort of thing. It's not even for what it's worth sort of thing. It's just period. Okay? Get your fig trees out in the sun. Okay? And prune them in a way that you won't have big, long, lengthy branches and all of this superfluous growth which produces no figs or poor quality figs. Not as many figs, not as tasty figs, etc. Okay, so we're not going to wear that out anymore. So I've been doing work back here, and I've been cleaning up and doing my spring work, and I've done pretty good. I've got everything under control. I'm happy with my progress here. And those are my persimmons trees in the background. Everything's doing well. The front and side orchard that I mentioned and featured recently is doing exceedingly well, as is this one. And I'm just very excited. I'm going to be picking a great many figs this season, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of figs. And so I'm very, very, very excited about the fruits of my labor. But it is labor intensive. It requires work. It requires planning. It requires tying. It requires fertilizing. Not too much, and only after fruit set, as I mentioned before. Only after fruit set, never before. And maybe only once. If you're going to fertilize twice, maybe the middle of July you can give it a little shot, but you want to back off. And for the reasons I've explained before, I don't want to go into detail about it, but I think that's the best strategy. It's how I do it. Different people may have different strategies, and they may be successful at their strategies, and that's great. But I don't like over fertilizing fig trees. I want the wood to harden off in the fall, and I want the crop to come to fruition when it really should. I don't want a lot of straggly branches growing late in the season. I mentioned all these things before. I want a very condensed and solid tree. I don't want a real big tree. I want a tree with loaded with fruit on every single node. That's what I want. Look, you can look with your own eyes. Every single node. That's what I want. I want fruit. Lots of fruit. Okay? In a small, contained area. I don't want wild trees growing wildly and essentially could be described as, fruitful weeds is what I see a lot of. And that's not what you want. You want highly productive, condensed versions of fig trees that are producing a high yield, a very tasty, delectable fruit in a very sunny location. Full sun is better. And the less sun that you have, well, expect less quality as you go down the scale. All right, and high and dry, don't grow figs in your lowest property. Hopefully you have property that a water table's sufficiently underneath of the roots that you're going to have a good harvest without having a lot of cracking and splitting. Sometimes people ascribe certain characteristics to certain fig varieties, and I don't agree, because if they were grown in a slightly different location, I don't think that the results would be the same. I don't think they would be cracking and splitting as much. You know, these things vary, and you can make them vary. You can control them. Okay, you're the gardener, you're in control. You're the arbiter of all things when it comes to making decisions about your garden and about your fig orchard. So make them, okay? Don't take a reactive position, okay, or stance or attitude. You want to take an active role, not a reactive role. You don't want to have to keep reacting to mistakes that you're making or problems that develop in your orchard, and then you see them and you say, oh my gosh, I got to react to this. No, you know, try to think in advance. Try to predict exactly what problems might emerge with your orchard and take countermeasures before things occur. Take an active role. Be the gardener. Take an active role in growing your fig trees and anything that you grow. I don't care what it is, okay? Just like I did here. I took an active role. I made sure that the ground was properly prepared. You know, our son plowed the ground. He spaded it 6 inches deep, or 7 or 8. He did a great job. And then he helped me plant some of these plants and helped me manage them too. I was just on vacation for a little while, and he was managing everything in my absence, and he did a marvelous job. Look how beautiful, look how fruitful, look at the color, look at the rich color. There's nothing artificial in this garden. There's no sprays, there's no bug killers, you know, there's no herbicides, there's no pesticides, there's none of that stuff, okay? And you can see that it's a successful little garden. But it just didn't get there that way by itself. I took an active role, and our son took an active role in making sure that he took all the proper measures and steps that these things would occur in time, that this garden would come into fruition the way it has. And I've done the same with all of my fig trees and my persimmon trees and my blueberries and raspberries and strawberry and everything else I have that I've grown over the years. And I've grown many, 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 many things, and I'm growing many, many things right now. And they provide us with a substantial percentage of the foodstuffs that we eat, especially in the spring, summer, and the fall. And you saw my videos. I have them posted, where I have taken the dehydrator and dehydrated lots and lots of figs and put them in the freezer. And so we're eating persimmons and some figs, you know, right through the winter. So you can do that too. And then of course we have preserves. We make preserves, and so you can count that also as something that carries on into the winter months. So we're eating things from our garden essentially almost all year round. Okay, I still have some persimmons in the freezer that I put there last season and dehydrated, and we're still eating them, and they're absolutely delicious. You dehydrate them and put them in the freezer. They'll stay forever if you do that. They'll be preserved, and their vitamins and minerals forever if you do that. When I say forever, okay, it's figurative, but for a very, 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 very long time. Certainly for as long as it will take for you to devour them all, okay? And that's the whole point. Uh-oh, I have company. I did not know this. Look at that. Oh, Debbie had stepped out. She must have just gotten home. Okay, you want me to throw that? Okay, I'll throw it for you. Drop it down. You don't want me to throw it? Okay. So cute. Lovely. With that, okay, here it is. Look at that. My dad's hoe. My dad passed away when he was in his 90s, and he was a gardener too. And I miss him. That was his hoe. And now I've got it. This is the farmer's field, the cornfield, that just a couple of weeks ago. Look at it. Look at the growth rate. There's a farmer that knows his business. And I know that he does. A wonderful, wonderful crop of corn. Look at it. As far as the eye can see. I just love it. At night I can, they say some of the people that live in Iowa and places like that where there's huge, huge corn fields, you don't have to live in Iowa, but they say, oh, you can hear the corn crackling and growing. And you really can. You can. When you come out at nighttime and sit down, and if it's still and there's not a big breeze, you really can. It's not your imagination. You can hear the corn growing. Isn't that something? I can. Or maybe it's just my imagination, for what it's worth. Okay. Thank you for visiting. Oh, there she is. My certain better half. Hold on, Deb. Where'd you go? Oh, you went around one way and I went around the other way.
I was looking for Papa.
Rainwater. Always I try to use as much rainwater as I can in the garden and on the figs.
Yeah, we got a little bit of rain last night. That was good.
Yeah, we had 3/4 of an inch of rain.
Natural rain. This is great.
Yeah, we did.
Even though it makes the grass grow.
Yeah, I know. It just creates more work, but
Yeah.
actually it takes away some of the work because when I have to water everything as often, that's very time consuming and just as much work.
Somebody's having fun. Somebody's enjoying himself.
Okay, we're not talking figs at this moment, so you might want to just shut us off. What happened here? Am I still? Yeah, I think so. Okay, it's not responding too much. There she is.
Back to fig talk.
Okay, anything you want to add, Deb?
Yeah, looks like they're all coming along good.
Yeah.
Before you know it, they'll be getting ripe.
Yep. Isn't it amazing how much that garden grew in 2 weeks?
And the corn, everything's good.
2 weeks.
Not even 2 weeks. I think.
Maybe not even. Look at that. It's just unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow. Everything's under control. I've got to cut the grass in here, and I've got to trim in there with the push mower.
I saw a tiny little baby rabbit around there.
Did you?
So
A little baby bunny? Where at? In the garden?
Yeah, I think he was running out of the garden
Oh, where did he run to?
towards the field.
Oh yeah. Oh, he's got enough field to hide in. He'll be safe, I'm sure, from the eagles and other things and hawks.
Yeah. I think he was worried about me, but I wouldn't hurt him.
No, you wouldn't hurt him, and neither would I.
Maybe you think he was trying to eat some of those tomato plants that you
Those are just the suckers. I call them suckers.
Yeah.
You mean these things over here on the ground?
Yeah, because he looked like he came
Yeah,
out there.
I cut them last night, and I tied the plants in tighter.
They're probably
And I brought some string up tighter, up higher, and I pulled in all these little shoots. You only want to bring up 2 or 3, and so that the tomatoes will get larger and they'll be fuller and healthier. If you let too many shoots come up, you can see where I've been cutting them down there and all down there, and you can see them laying on the ground.
Yeah, I can't believe how much it grew.
So-
Because I thought we put it in all too late, but it's
Yeah,
really-
no, it's not too late. I'll tell you why it's not too late, because, well, for one thing, we couldn't.
Yeah.
We weren't here to do it any earlier, but when you put it in and the ground is cold, like before May 10th, they sometimes get sick. They don't grow very fast because the nights are cold.
Yeah.
And believe me, you could just wait 2 weeks and plant them, and they're going to catch up. They're going to catch right up to where they would, more so, and they're going to be healthier and more vibrant and have less diseases from the cold water and the cold ground. So you're better off waiting, in my opinion. You're better off waiting until it's a suitable time to put the plants in the ground, like we did this year and we do every time, and look at the results. So they catch up. Now, you're never going to get behind that way.
Right.
Now, of course, some people get their plants under plastic and they have
Yeah,
tomatoes by the
yeah,
4th of July.
that's
We're
true,
not going to
yeah.
have tomatoes.
Yeah.
We're going to have some,
What would be nice is to stagger them. You could put some in early, then you put some
yeah,
later.
if you were here and
Yeah,
you could
you could do
dedicate the
that.
time or maybe get them in the greenhouse, but, we
Yeah.
were not able to do it this year.
Yeah, maybe next year.
So, yeah, and you can actually buy trees that are
Yeah,
older, a little more developed, yeah.
And
And
try that next
then
year.
you have some earlier
I
tomatoes.
saw
You
a
can,
couple plants that were really mature.
yeah,
And they were
you can just take them out of the pots and put them right in the ground, and then you're going to have early tomatoes. But, it is what it is. But
Before you know it, we'll be
Yep, it won't be long. All right, with that, I hope that you enjoyed your visit. I always enjoy your visits. Please subscribe if you haven't. Good day.